The scream came from somewhere deep in the cornfield, ragged, wet, and so full of terror it made the skin behind her ears crawl. Lena froze. Her fingers still clutched the edge of the rusted gate that led into the field behind her aunt's farmhouse. But now it felt like stepping into a grave. She wasn't supposed to be here, not this late, not alone. But the dog had run in. She'd followed. And now someone was screaming. Not just someone, a woman. And the sound cut off mid-breath like something had grabbed her throat and yanked her down. "Cody," she whispered, barely audible, calling her dog. "Come on, boy, don't mess around." No rustling, no bark. Nothing but wind, slicing through the 7-foot stalks around her, making them shiver like they knew something she didn't. She stepped inside the corn. The path barely held. The muddy ground squelched under her sneakers, and her flashlight trembled in her grip. The light flicked briefly. Batteries. Of course, 10 steps in, the entrance vanished behind her. The corn swallowed sound. She heard only her heartbeat now, louder than the wind. Then snap, a twig, a stalk. It had come from the left. She swung the light. Something moved. Not Cody. Human height. Dark. Too fast. "Who's there?" Her voice cracked. The corn answered back. Whispers. No words, faint. Dozens of voices, too many. Her blood chilled. Then she saw it. Cody, slumped over, his fur soaked red, his eyes staring at her like he'd died afraid. No. She didn't hear the footsteps behind her, not until it was too late, 1 hour earlier. Lena hadn't even planned to stay the night. She was only here to check on her aunt's house while she recovered in the hospital. A minor fall. Nothing serious. But rural Nebraska got lonely, especially with no cell service this deep into the back roads. The cornfield was huge, unnaturally huge. Her aunt had always joked it grew too fast, too wide. The kind that remembers people. Lena had laughed at the stories, people getting lost, vanishing, until now. Back in the present, her flashlight flickered again, then died. She turned, and a face appeared inches from hers, but it wasn't human, not anymore. Its eyes were pitch black, no whites, no life, just soil. And blood and rot leaking from its mouth. She ran, tripped, crawled. Stalks whipped her face like claws. Behind her, whispers turned to screams, not in fear, in laughter. Cut to Sheriff Doyle. He stood outside the cornfield 2 days later, boots deep in mud, staring at the spot Lena's footprints had led into, but never came out. No sign of the girl, no sign of her dog, only the gate creaking in the wind, and the torn edge of a notebook page pinned to the stalks with a rusted nail. It read, "They know your name the moment you step in, and they never forget." The only sound in the room was the slow tick of the clock above the sheriff's desk. Sheriff Doyle sat stiffly, staring at the torn notebook page they'd found nailed to the corn. The note didn't just send a chill down his spine, it felt personal. He'd grown up here, knew the rumors, everyone did. They called it Whispering Field. Old folks said the corn talked at night, but no one took it seriously until people like Lena started vanishing, and this was the 3rd one in 2 years. Only this time, he'd found something else too. He pulled the Ziploc bag from his drawer and examined the silver locket inside. It was dirt-streaked and bent, but inside was a photo of Lena, and a woman with eyes so familiar it made Doyle's heart jolt. His own mother, 30 years earlier. The summer he turned 12, Doyle's mother had taken him out to the edge of the cornfield and warned him never to go in. She'd gripped his shoulders so tightly he'd cried out, "If you ever hear your name from the corn, you run, and never look back." He'd thought she was being dramatic, until 2 weeks later she disappeared, vanished without a trace. Not a single stalk disturbed, just her shoes left by the edge and a broken gold necklace in the mud. Now, Lena had vanished, and he'd just found her necklace and his mother's face in a photo she had no business owning. Something was horribly wrong. That evening, Doyle drove out to the farm again. Sunset was bleeding across the sky, casting long shadows over the field. The corn stood unnaturally still, like it was waiting. He didn't step in this time. He called out, "Lena!" Silence. He took a deep breath and played his last card. He took out his phone and pressed play on the audio clip he'd been sent anonymously earlier that day. The one that came from a burner number, with no ID, no trace. It was Lena's voice. "If you find this, I need you to know I saw her, your mother. She's alive, but not the same. Don't come in here, don't listen to them." Then static. Then a whisper. "We remember you, Doyle." His mouth went dry. He dropped the phone. The corn began to sway, even though the air was still. Inside the cornfield, Lena didn't know how long she'd been running. Time worked differently here. She hadn't seen the sun in what felt like days. The sky above was gray, but sometimes it shimmered, like there was a second sky hiding behind the first. She had no food, no water, just the whispers, getting louder. They called her name. They laughed in different voices. They mocked her memories, her mum's lullabies, her father's goodbye, her first heartbreak. The corn knew everything, and then she found the house. It stood impossibly tall among the stalks, made of rotted wood and black nails, with no windows, only slats. Like a birdcage, something moved inside. Lena knew she should run, but something, stronger than fear, pulled her forward. Inside it was dark, not pitch black, sick black. The kind of black that felt wet. Then she saw her, a woman in a torn floral dress, pale, thin, hair like tangled roots. Her back was to Lena. She rocked slowly in a wooden chair facing a corner. Lena swallowed. "Mom?" The rocking stopped. The woman stood up, but didn't turn around. Then, softly, "I never left. They won't let me." Her voice cracked like ice. "I didn't want to be like them. I tried to warn people, but the corn keeps us. Who are you?" The woman turned, and Lena's knees gave out, because this woman was her grandmother. But her grandmother had died in 1993, car crash. That's what the family had always said, except now, here she was. Her eyes clouded over, lips cracked, fingers twitching like broken antennae. "You should have stayed away. Now they know your blood. Now they want your skin." Suddenly, a door slammed upstairs, and the woman began to scream, "Outside, Sheriff!" Doyle made a decision. He stepped into the corn. The whispers stopped. He took one step, then another. The gate behind him creaked shut on its own. The moment his boots crossed into the first ring of stalks, he felt it, like the air itself changed weight, like the field was breathing. He pulled out his revolver, but even that felt useless. Here, still, he pushed forward. 10 minutes in, he found a trail, not a path, a drag mark, like something had been pulled. He followed it, and at the end, tied to the base of a thick, rotten scarecrow post, was a man. His face was cut, clothes in rags, blood dried in streaks across his chest. His eyes fluttered open at the sound of Doyle's approach. "You came," he rasped. "Who are you?" Doyle asked, crouching beside him. The man trembled. "My name's Everett. I was the farmhand here for her family back in '91. Doyle froze. "My mother's family." Everett nodded. "They made deals with the field, old rituals, blood for harvest, sacrifices." Lena stumbled onto something she wasn't meant to see. Doyle's stomach turned. "Is she alive?" Everett's eyes filled with panic. "They're keeping her in the house of thorns. But if you go there, you might not come back whole. This place, it feeds on who you were. It remakes you." Behind them, the corn rustled. Fast, urgent, like something crawling on all fours. Everett looked at Doyle, eyes wide. "It's too late. They've smelled you. You're not leaving now." Cut to Lena, trapped inside the House of Thorns. She climbed the staircase, each step moaning under her weight. The walls pulsed. Yes, pulsed, like skin, veins crawling across them, faintly glowing. Upstairs, the hallway was filled with mirrors, but none of them showed her reflection, only versions of her, one crying, one screaming, one with empty sockets instead of eyes. Then, a door opened at the end. Inside stood a girl, maybe 8 years old, pale, wearing Lena's childhood dress. She smiled, but her teeth were too sharp. "You shouldn't have come back," the girl said. "I've never been here," Lena whispered. The girl tilted her head. "Not in this life." Lena's hands trembled as she backed away from the little girl, not because of the child's appearance, but because she recognized the scar over her left brow, the one she got falling off her bike when she was 6. This was no ghost. This was her. "But how? I'm not supposed to be here," Lena whispered. The child smiled wider, unnervingly still. "None of us are. But now that you've touched the root, it remembers you." A creak sounded behind her, not the floorboards, the walls. The whole house groaned like it was breathing again. "I need to get out," Lena muttered, backing down the hallway, past the glassless mirrors. The child tilted her head. "You can't, not without finishing the cycle." And then she said something that made Lena's blood run cold. "You've been here before. You just don't remember what you did." Meanwhile, Sheriff Doyle was dragging Everett through the corn. The man could barely walk, leaning heavily on Doyle's shoulder. Every few minutes, he coughed hard enough to bring up blood. "You should have let me die there," Everett rasped. "I'm not leaving anyone behind," Doyle snapped. "But you don't understand," Everett said. "This field, it's alive, and it keeps pieces of everyone who's ever stepped foot inside." They paused to rest against a cracked scarecrow post. Its burlap face had rotted off, revealing what looked like bone. Doyle pretended not to see it. "How do we find the House of Thorns?" he asked. Everett hesitated. "You don't find it, it finds you, usually after it's too late." Back in the house, Lena descended the staircase, only to realize the ground floor had changed. The kitchen was gone. Now, there was a narrow hallway lined with wooden masks nailed into the walls. Each one had a different expression: fear, rage, sorrow, laughter. Some were weeping red sap, others had their mouths stitched shut with twine. Lena reached for one, but the moment her fingers brushed it, she heard a scream in her head. Not from outside, inside, as if her mind had split open. She staggered back. "You touched a memory," said the child again. She was standing at the base of the stairs now, though Lena hadn't heard her move. "This house collects them. Moments. Sins! All the little things you hoped no one would ever know." Lena turned slowly. "What do you mean, sins?" The girl pointed toward a door. "You'll remember soon." Sheriff Doyle wasn't alone anymore. He and Everett had stopped when they noticed something strange. The whispers had gone silent. For the first time since entering, the corn was still. "I don't like this," Doyle muttered. Suddenly Everett froze, his whole body locked up. His eyes widened like he'd seen death itself. Then quietly, "No, no, no, no." Doyle turned and nearly dropped his flashlight. A figure stood among the stalks, not moving, just watching. It was a woman in a floral dress. His mother. "Mom?" Doyle whispered. She didn't speak, didn't blink. Everett grabbed his arm. "That's not your mother. It just wears her face." But Doyle was already walking. "Mom?" The figure turned and vanished into the corn. Doyle followed. Lena opened the door. Inside was a hospital room, flickering lights, machines beeping, a woman on the bed, her mother, Lena's real, living mother. But this scene was from 10 years ago. Her mother dying of cancer, asking Lena to come home. Lena hadn't. She was off partying 2 states away. The figure in the bed turned her head. "Why didn't you come?" she whispered. Lena backed away. "No, this isn't real. You're not real." "She begged for you," the voice said, until her last breath. Lena fell to her knees, sobbing. She couldn't look, couldn't breathe. Then she heard a new voice, her own, but older. "We are built from the choices we bury." Doyle chased the figure deeper and deeper. Branches scratched his face. The corn grew darker, the air thicker. Finally, he stumbled into a clearing. The ground beneath him felt soft, too soft. He looked down and realized he was standing on a mass grave, dozens of half-buried dolls, bones, clothing, and in the center, a stone table covered in rust-colored stains. On it was a journal, his mother's. He opened the first page. June 4th, 1991. I made a mistake. I gave them what they wanted, and they gave me back something else. Page after page detailed what Doyle could barely comprehend. Rituals, offerings, how she tried to stop it, but the field was already feeding. And the final entry. If anyone finds this, you must end it. Burn the heart. Below, drawn in blood, was a symbol, a twisting root, curled like a sleeping serpent. Lena was reliving every moment she hated herself for. The abortion she never told anyone about. The night she lied to her best friend, costing her a scholarship. The time she almost drove drunk and swerved off the road, thinking it was just bad luck she hit someone. Now, all those memories played out in rooms of the house, each more suffocating than the last. But then, she found the basement. She hadn't seen it before. Drawn to it like a magnet, she descended the crooked stairs. At the bottom, a pool of black water. In the center floated a figure. Lena stepped closer. It was herself, but older. Graying hair, hollowed eyes, lips stitched shut. The water whispered, "This is who you'll become, unless you give the field something greater." She understood instantly. She had to offer something it hadn't tasted before. Not a memory, not blood. The truth. Doyle emerged from the clearing, burning with clarity. He had to find the heart of the field. But first, he had to find Lena. He doubled back and found Everett collapsed by the scarecrow. "Rest," Doyle said. "I'll come back for you." But Everett grabbed his hand with surprising strength. "If you find her, don't let her make a deal. That's how it traps you. It pretends to offer a way out, but it's all lies." Then he whispered one last thing. "The House of Thorns moves, but it always returns to its root. Follow the dead crows." "And he died?" Lena stared into the water. The house began to shake. The voice returned. "You know what you must give." Lena nodded. "I give it all. My secrets, my shame, my past. Take it." The water turned red. The reflection screamed. But she didn't look away. Not this time. Outside, Doyle followed the trail of dead birds. One by one, they led him to a tree in the middle of the corn. Its bark was blackened, roots exposed. It pulsed like a heart. The house was beside it, and inside, it was burning. Lena stood in the doorway, flames dancing around her. Her face was wet with tears, but she looked free. "I found it," she said. "I know how to end it." He rushed to her. "How?" She held out her hand. "We burn the heart together." They poured gasoline over the tree, lit the match, and watched it go up like paper. The fire wasn't normal. It hissed. It screamed. The corn shook and collapsed inward. The ground cracked open. From deep below, something rose. A mass of black roots and faces trapped inside. They howled as they burned. Then silence, total, and then the sun rose for the first time in days. 1 year later, Lena sat on a bench outside her therapist's office. She looked up at the clear sky and smiled. Doyle joined her, coffee in hand. "Weird. How quiet this town is now," she said. He nodded. "Sometimes quiet is good." They sat in silence for a while. Then Lena whispered, "Do you ever wonder if we really made it out?" Doyle didn't answer right away. Then he looked her dead in the eye and said, "Every night. It started with the mirrors." Lena first noticed it 3 days after the fire. She had just gotten out of the shower and wiped the fog off the bathroom mirror, only to see something behind her, a figure, still watching. She spun around. Nothing, but the mirror, still fogged on one side, held the shape a moment too long, as if the figure hadn't vanished, just sunk deeper. She told herself it was trauma, stress, residual fear. But she couldn't shake the feeling that when they left the field, they didn't leave alone. Doyle was drinking again, not because he liked it, but because sleep made it worse. Every time he closed his eyes, he was back in the corn, back in the clearing, the faces in the roots whispering his name. One dream stood out. He was walking through the station, but none of the deputies looked at him. They were frozen, lifeless. In the mirror above the water cooler, he saw himself, but it wasn't himself. It was his father, and his father had been dead for 12 years. He stopped showing up to work after that. 2 weeks passed. Lena moved into a small studio across town, far from the house, far from the corn. She tried to rebuild. She journaled. She took long walks. She saw her therapist, but the feeling that something was watching never left. Then one night she heard it. 3 knocks, not on her front door, but from inside her closet. She froze, held her breath, then again, knock, knock, knock. She crept to the door. Hand trembling, she opened it. Darkness, then a whisper. You gave us your truth, but not your pain. She slammed the door shut, locked it and backed away, tears spilling down her cheeks. They were still here. The field was gone, but the haunting had followed. Doyle visited Lena the next day. She opened the door and immediately burst into tears. I thought it was over, she said. I thought we burned it. Doyle nodded. It doesn't want the land. It wants us. He told her about the dreams, about the mirror, about the thing wearing his father's face. She told him about the knocks, the voice in the closet. For a long time, neither spoke. Then Lena said what they were both thinking. Maybe we didn't kill it. Maybe we freed it. They returned to the edge of the field, nothing but charred soil, no corn, no roots, no tree. But the ground pulsed, not visibly, felt like a heartbeat under your feet. Lena knelt, placing her hand on the blackened dirt. She gasped. Doyle, it's not dead. He crouched beside her. Then what the hell did we burn? Suddenly, a flock of crows burst from the nearby treetops, all flying in a perfect spiral, a warning or a sign. They had to go deeper, not into the field, into themselves. Lena remembered the child, the little girl in the house, the one who looked like her. Everett said it remembers us, she told Doyle. What if we left pieces of ourselves behind? Or worse, Doyle said, what if the field took those pieces and built something else? That night they decided to test a theory. Lena set up cameras in her apartment, infrared, motion triggered. They stayed up watching. At 3:12 a.m., the screen flickered, and then a figure appeared in the footage, small, childlike, standing at the foot of her bed, but not moving, not breathing. It stared at the camera, then slowly raised one hand and pointed straight at Lena. She screamed, Doyle, jumped up, pistol drawn, but nothing was there. The next morning, the footage was gone, corrupted. They started calling it the residue, the idea that the field didn't need to exist physically anymore because it had moved inside them. It used their guilt, their memories, their trauma to build new doors. Doyle traced his nightmares back. Every face he'd seen belonged to someone he'd failed to save. Lena traced hers, each vision tied to a secret she still hadn't forgiven herself for. The field doesn't feed on land, she whispered one night. It feeds on regret. They returned to Everett's old farmhouse. It was abandoned, rotting, but on the walls, scratched into the paint, they found symbols, dozens, all versions of the twisting root. And in the center of the living room, a message burned into the floorboards. You can't bury the past. You have to walk through it. They understood now. This wasn't about escape. It was about confrontation. Doyle made the call. He knew where the pain started. His father, a violent, unpredictable man who vanished in 1994 after torching their barn and trying to drag Doyle's mother into the flames. His body was never found. Rumors said he ran. Others said the field took him. Doyle had never gone back to the old property until now. They reached it by dusk. The barn was still half burned, leaning like a dying animal, but behind it, a cellar. Padlocked, Doyle broke it open. Inside was dust, bone, and silence. Then, in the far corner, a mirror, the same mirror from his dream, cracked, dirt smeared, but inside it, his reflection smiled and said, "Welcome home, boy." Lena wasn't idle. While Doyle faced his past, she went to the hospital, the one where her mother died. She found the room, sat there for an hour, then opened her journal and wrote, "I'm sorry I didn't show up. I was scared you'd hate who I became, but I'm here now." She placed the journal on the windowsill and whispered, "I forgive me." And just like that, the air shifted. Doyle smashed the mirror, not out of rage, out of understanding. "I'm not you," he said. Then he whispered to the shadows, "I forgive you, and I let you go." The room went still. The rot peeled away. The cellar felt lighter. 3 days later, Lena called Doyle at midnight. "I think it's over," she said. He didn't speak right away. "Maybe not over," he said, "but we know how to fight it now." "Yeah," Lena agreed, "not with fire, with forgiveness." They laughed a little, then cried, then fell asleep on the phone, miles apart, but finally at peace. In a distant town, hundreds of miles away, a boy played in a cornfield behind his grandmother's house. He tripped on something, looked down. It was a wooden mask, one with a twisted smile and dried red sap leaking from its eyes. The boy picked it up. A whisper tickled the back of his mind. "We remember." The nightmare didn't end. It adapted. 3 weeks after Doyle shattered the mirror and Lena left her journal at the hospital, things were quiet. Too quiet. No knocks, no shadows, no voices, just stillness. Lena should have felt relief, but she didn't. She felt watched, not haunted, studied like the thing hadn't gone. It had just gone quiet, waiting, plotting, becoming something worse, something patient. It started again with a dream. Lena was in her childhood bedroom, but everything was wrong. The floor was dirt. Corn stalks grew through the floorboards, and on. Her bed was her mother's body, drenched in roots, whispering something she couldn't understand. She leaned in closer. Her mother's eyes snapped open and screamed, "It's inside him." Lena jolted awake, gasping, drenched in sweat. She called Doyle. He didn't answer. She tried again, and again. No reply. Her gut twisted. Something was wrong. Doyle had vanished. No one at the station had seen him in days. His cabin was empty. Car in the driveway, lights off, but the door was unlocked. Lena stepped inside, every muscle tense. The place smelled like soil, fresh soil, but there were no plants, no windows open. And on the coffee table, she found something that made her knees buckle. Corn husk, wrapped in an old police report from 1994, filed by a Walter Doyle Sr., a man long presumed dead. The report was handwritten and said, "It's not in the field anymore. It's in me. If I hurt anyone, burn me." Lena's throat closed. It hadn't gone dormant. It had moved into Doyle. She found him at the tree, the original one, charred, broken, but somehow still standing. He was sitting at its base, staring at nothing. His eyes were glassy, his hands bloody. "Doyle," she said softly. He didn't move. "Are you hurt?" He blinked, slowly, then whispered, "I didn't mean to." She froze. "What didn't you mean?" His voice broke. "I went to see her. I had to see my mother. I thought it would help. And she's dead, Lena. She's been dead for years." "No," he said. "Now she's really dead." He showed her the newspaper the next morning, an article, "Woman found dead on rural road, cause unknown." A photo. It was Doyle's mother, the same woman he'd visited 3 nights ago. "She was fine when I left," he said. Lena shook her head. Are you sure? He looked at her, hollow. No. Then he whispered something she would never forget. Sometimes I wake up standing in corn, but there's no corn around. They made a choice. If the field had moved into Doyle, then maybe they could still fight it, not with fire, not with flight, but with truth. Lena suggested something insane. Let it take you. What? Doyle snapped. Not completely. Just enough. Enough to see what it wants, what it is. You want me to invite it in? No, she said. I think it's already inside. I'm saying, open your eyes to what it sees. That night, Doyle tied himself to a chair. Lena watched as he drifted into sleep. An hour passed, then 2. At exactly 3:33 a.m., he began to mutter, low, whispering, then screaming. His eyes flew open, but they weren't his eyes anymore. Black, endless, he stared at her and hissed, "We were never a curse, we were a consequence." Then the ropes snapped. Doyle lurched forward, but stopped, chest heaving. His eyes returned to normal. He collapsed. Lena caught him, sobbing. "What did you see?" she begged. He looked at her, and for the first time in years, he looked scared. "It was never about us," he whispered. "We're not the only ones it touched." The truth came fast. The cornfield wasn't just a place. It was a doorway. Fractured memory space that stored pain, replicated trauma, and then used it to replicate people. Not ghosts, not demons, but echoes, copies. Somewhere someone had tried to bind it, trap it, but trauma spreads. And now it was evolving. It had found new soil, the internet. They found a Reddit thread buried deep in a conspiracy forum. Dozens of users, describing dreams, always corn, always roots, always the same symbols. Some had never even been to the Midwest. Some were in other countries. Lena and Doyle read post after post. "My brother woke up covered in dirt. We live in a condo. My wife keeps mumbling about the harvest. She doesn't remember it later. I dug up a mask behind our apartment. My kid wears it, says it talks to him." It was spreading digitally, psychically, globally. They needed help, but no one believed them. The station dismissed Doyle as unstable. Lena's therapist recommended inpatient treatment. They were alone again, but not for long, because one night a package arrived. No sender, just a note. "You're not crazy. You're just early." Inside, a drive, on it dozens of surveillance files, footage from towns across the country, of people walking through walls, of roots growing through floors in clean apartments, of people wearing wooden masks. It was happening. Again, and Everett somehow was still helping. Doyle made a decision. He would end it, for good. Not just run from it, not just survive it. He would sacrifice. "The only way to close a door," he said, "is from the other side." Lena screamed at him, begged him not to go back, but he kissed her forehead and said, "If I go alone, it follows. If I go willingly, it ends." She gave him one final gift, the journal, her journal, full of her pain, her truth, her forgiveness. He tucked it into his coat and walked into the night. Back at the field where the tree once stood, Doyle dug deeper than before. Through ash, through rot, through bone, until he found it, the root heart, still alive, still beating. He placed the journal on it, lit a match, then closed his eyes. "I forgive myself. I forgive you. Let it end here." Flames erupted, but no smoke, just light, like sunlight breaking through 1,000 mirrors. And for the first time in decades, the field screamed. Lena heard it from her apartment, a distant wail. Then silence. She waited and waited. Then her phone rang, a blocked number. She answered. No one spoke. Then softly, "It's over." It was Doyle. He was alive. But different. Voice calmer. No fear, no guilt, just peace. And then he hung up. She never heard from him again. Some say he moved to the coast. Others say he vanished. Lena thinks he stayed in the in-between, watching, waiting, guarding the door he closed with his soul. But the truth, doors can always be reopened, and some things don't stay buried, especially when they're planted and watered and remembered. It ended in fire. Or at least that's what Lena kept telling herself. But fire doesn't erase trauma, it just clears the ground. And something always grows back, especially in silence, especially in the dark. It had been 6 months since Doyle walked into the heart of the old field and never returned. No more dreams, no more whispers, no more stalks sprouting in impossible places. Lena thought maybe, just maybe, it was over, until the letter arrived, handwritten, no return address, just her name. Inside, one line: "It needs a witness." Folded with it, a photo, grainy, black and white, but unmistakable. Doyle, standing in a field, but not the old one. This one looked new, built, designed, engineered. Lena flew to Nebraska. Where the field once was, there was nothing but black earth and wildflowers. No tree, no ruins, no sign of what happened. She almost turned back until she saw it. A crow perched on a mailbox, watching her. Its eyes glowed faintly red, and beneath its claws, a key. She stepped closer. The bird didn't move. She took the key. It was attached to a motel tag, room 108. The motel was empty, old, peeling, stuck in time. Room 108 was unlocked. Inside was nothing but a chair, a journal, and a TV. The journal was Doyle's, but the writing wasn't his. It was hers. Her childhood journal, one she'd burned years ago, but the pages had grown. Now, filled with entries she never wrote. "He watches me through the stalks. Mum says it's just wind, but the wind shouldn't whisper." They buried a mask in the sandbox. It smiles even when you cry. She closed it, heart pounding. The TV flickered on, static, then a face. Doyle, but not quite. Too still, too symmetrical. It stared at her and said, "You survived, but that wasn't the point." Then the screen went black. Suddenly, she remembered everything. The visits as a child to her aunt's farm, the long walks in the corn, the time she went missing for 5 hours and came back soaked in mud, saying only, "I was talking to the roots." No one believed her, not even her parents. But it had started long ago with her. She was always connected to it. It didn't pick victims, it picked mirrors, people who carried grief, anger, secrets, and it grew through them, fed by pain. Doyle had delayed it, but he hadn't destroyed it. He'd handed it to her, not to suffer, to choose, bury it, or become it. She left the motel and drove, nowhere in particular, just away. But no matter how far she went, cornfields followed. Abandoned lots turned into stalks. Billboards peeled to reveal husks. She pulled over in a gas station somewhere. In Kansas, went inside and saw herself on the TV above the counter. But not now, as a child running through a corn maze, smiling until she wasn't, until she was gone, swallowed by shadows. The clerk just said, "You dropped this," and handed her another photo of the same scene, only this time there was something behind her, tall, rooted, wearing her face. Lena returned to her hometown, to the place it all began, the empty lot where her childhood home once stood, now overrun with weeds and corn. She stepped into it. The air changed, colder, thicker, breathing. Each step felt heavier, like the ground didn't want her to leave. At the center, she found a scarecrow, wearing Doyle's badge, and around its neck, the mask. The original one. Wooden, cracked, smiling. She picked it up. It whispered, "You can forget, or you can finish." She hesitated, then put it on. The world melted. She wasn't in the lot anymore. She was in the field, but it was different, wider, endless, stretching in every direction, and standing in front of her, Doyle, alive, or something like him. "You made it," he said. She cried. "You're alive?" "In a way," he said. "We all are here. Everything the field touched, it kept. Pieces of us." "What is this place?" He looked around, then said softly, "A memory, a seed, a decision." She stared at him, then looked at the endless rows of corn. "So what now?" He stepped closer. "Tear it out, or plant something better." She understood. It wasn't about escape. It was about transformation. You don't kill pain. You compost it. You make it into something new. Lena raised the mask, kissed it gently and dropped it into the soil. Then she reached for Doyle's hand. He smiled, and the field began to wither. When Lena woke up, she was back in her apartment. No mask, no dirt, no phone call. But something was different. Her plants had grown overnight. Healthy, green. No whispers in the leaves, just peace. She opened her laptop, started typing. The story poured out of her, every memory, every horror, every truth. And when she finished, she titled it, "What Grows in Silence." The story went viral. Thousands read it. Many dismissed it, but some wrote back, "I had the same dream. I saw the mask too. Thank you. I thought I was alone." And so the field didn't die, it changed. It became a story, one that warned, one that watched, but no longer controlled, because Lena had given it what it always wanted, witnesses, and witnesses make things real, but they also make them accountable. Now, the choice is yours. You can forget this, click away, tell yourself it was just fiction, or you can look out the window tonight at that quiet field and ask yourself, is something watching me back? But be careful, because if the corn starts whispering your name, you've already been chosen, and you'll never walk alone again, not in the dark, not in the silence, not in the corn. The end.